I'm excited about the Show of Strength first and foremost because it is going to be the fitness event in Asia this year and for years to come. So we've got athletes coming from all over Southeast Asia to come and battle it out on stage. All sorts of different shapes and sizes you're going to see there. We've got all sorts of other things going on at the event, so it's more of a holistic event. So we've got things like yoga, Pilates, powerlifting, strongman, arm wrestling, all these other things going on. So this is not just going to be a bodybuilding standard event. There's going to be all sorts of stuff going on. And it's essentially the rebirth of the IFBB in Singapore as well. The IFBB, why am I excited about the IFBB coming to Singapore? Well, the IFBB has been in Singapore previously, on and off. So my vision is to grow the IFBB in Singapore and grow the sport of bodybuilding and fitness, change the image, so the perception of the sport, involve more people in the sport, and also make it a very transparent and I guess inclusive sport and activity for all to be involved with, so that it's not so exclusive anymore. So we want to make the sport less exclusive and more inclusive. So often the perception with bodybuilding is that people think that I wouldn't be able to do that, that's too much for me, I'll never be able to look like that. We want to make people realize that yes, you can, and that we are welcoming you to come and be part of our organization. Yeah, when I was very young, I was always a very active kid. We actually lived in Brunei when I was a kid, so there wasn't a great deal to do there. So that kind of forced you into finding ways to entertain yourself through physical activity. So I'd go running in the jungle with my dad, hashing is what it was called. We'd be sailing, swimming, diving, all sorts of stuff like that. I had a basketball net in my garden, so we'd be shooting hoops in the garden, chasing each other around all the time, riding bikes. And then when I moved to school in the UK, it was predominantly a rugby school, so we were pretty much forced to play rugby, which I came to love and got quite good at. I carried that forward into university, played rugby for my university and captained my university first team in rugby, and also played for a Premiership rugby team academy, Leeds Tykes at the time. And then moving on from there is how I found bodybuilding. I was always interested in it, but I'd never really fully pursued it. So I took a little bit of time off rugby because I was getting injured and wanted to also put on a little bit of muscle. So I met a bodybuilder in the local gym in York in the UK, and just started asking him a few questions about his training and things like that. And we kind of hit it off and started training together eventually, and then he was like, hey, why don't you do a show? And then it just went from there. So I did my first show in 2004, fell in love with the sport and never looked back. So the show that I'm doing along with the 4 other people from Singapore is called the Global Classic in Macau. Personally, I've been preparing now for just over 13 weeks. So everybody has a different approach, so there's not necessarily a right or wrong. I have a coach in the UK who helps me as well, so even though I coach people, yes, I need a coach too. So obviously there's a very strict diet regimen, cardio work daily, twice daily, training, weight training. You're going to monitor your rest, your water intake, everything. Basically everything you do is measured and monitored carefully to get the very best result. I could probably tell you more body parts that I don't love. However, I think probably my more dominant body parts are my chest, shoulders and triceps. Biceps as well have always been body parts that respond quite quickly. Areas that I've been working on have been my back and my legs, which have improved a great deal, especially since working with my coach in the UK. We've been hitting my back and my legs nearly every other session, and I've seen a tremendous improvement in those over the last 6 months to a year, so I'm really pleased with that. But in bodybuilding, it's one of those things where you're never satisfied. You always could be better, and you always have areas that you maybe don't really like, and then that can sometimes even change on a day-to-day basis. If you want to get fit and healthy, let's say, number one, you need to set yourself a goal, a clear, defined, measurable goal. If you have a goal, then the chances of you actually being successful are 100% better. Number two, once you've set that goal, you need to be consistent. So you need to make sure that you follow your plan, that you don't deviate, and that you consistently work out, you consistently monitor your diet, and follow your plan. So that one of the big things people get wrong, and a lot of people like put it down to other things and try and look into it in too much detail, is just one simple thing, it's consistency. They're not consistent enough. They're on and off the diet, on and off the training, a week here off the gym, a couple of days of binging. You're never going to reach your goal that way. You need to be consistent for an extended period of time, and ideally for health, you need to be consistent like for the rest of your life, and make it a lifestyle, so that it's not just something that you see as a short-term sacrifice, because then, I mean, what's the point? If you're just doing it as a short-term thing, you're just going to end up going back to where you started. So you want to actually be looking at doing something that you can learn to love the process of, and make it a long-term lifestyle commitment. What excites me now is obviously the upcoming event in October, and the rebirth of the IFBB in Singapore. So this is not about me or my business, that's completely separate. This is about growing the sport of bodybuilding and fitness in Singapore, and making it a fair, transparent, and enjoyable activity for all to be involved with.